Hello, I'm Sandra Gilman, Chairman of the American Theatre Wing, with our board president, Doug Leeds. Welcome to today's program. Working in the theater brings together everyone, from performers and directors to playwrights and producers. It gives all of us a rare opportunity to see the people who create theater engage in conversation with one another.
With more than 850 guests during the 30 years that these programs have been on the air, working in the theater allows all of us to hear from the people behind the characters, the stories, and the productions that draws each of us to the theater.
We hope you'll enjoy today's edition as we share yet another unprecedented forum for a meeting of theatrical minds.
And we'll be back later to tell you more about the work of the American Theatre Wing. But right now, please join us for Working in the Theater.
From Broadway extravaganzas to smaller venues off-Broadway and in productions across the country, musicals tell a story through song, dance, and dialogue. Hello, I'm Melissa Rose Bernardo from Entertainment Weekly for the American Theatre Wing, and I'm joined by 4 performers who'll share their stories about making musicals come to life on stage. Our guests today are Roger Bart from Young Frankenstein, Brian Darcy James from Next to Normal, Priscilla Lopez from In the Heights, and Sherry Renee Scott from The Little Mermaid. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm looking at your Broadway credits. Do you purposely seek out musicals?
I think most actors want to do anything they can that's going to stretch them or give them an opportunity to do something different than the last thing they did. But in terms of making decisions about not doing plays as opposed to musical theater, definitely not, and I would probably venture to guess that everyone here would say the same thing. But musicals these days can often provide a lot of different ways to perform in the context of a musical. There's all kinds of different ways of delivering a musical these days, and the structure and the creation of them. Off Broadway has a lot of, I think, maybe a little more chance to kind of open up the parameters of what a musical is and how they're produced. But the long answer is no.
I think it's true what he says, that nowadays the musical theater's changed and it sort of takes in a lot more than it did before, because I mean, I've been doing this for a very long time. When I first started, I was just in musical theater in the chorus, and then started doing roles and all of that, and worked my way up to, principal in a musical, new musical and all that, and then made the conscious decision to, okay, I'm gonna do plays now. And just stopped with the musical, because there was a time when there were these slots, and you were either a straight actor or a musical actor, and so I made that conscious decision, and then spent many years just doing plays. And now that I'm doing a musical again, the people who come to see musicals too, they seem to be just geared to the musical theater, because they say, "Oh, we're so glad you're back in the theater." I'm going, "No, I've been here for the last whatever." They just don't. So it seems the audiences are sort of in their departments also. But it's true in terms of how the musical itself is changing now, that you no longer are just a singer or a dancer or an actor. You have to do it all,
There's a practical aspect to it also. I think that musicals pay more than straight plays. I've stayed in shows longer than was probably healthy for me, so that I could bank up money to do plays, or to do off-Broadway shows that I wanted to do. So I think that there's also that aspect to it, that there's just if you want to do straight plays, it's good that you can do both, because you can make a better living. I don't know about you, but I can make
along those lines. Plays, musicals usually last longer.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be in a brilliant play, and the market somehow just won't allow for it to thrive unless it's a smash hit play. But generally speaking, I think it's true that it's harder to get months of employment, more months of employment doing a play than a musical.
And for those who are watching, who are just starting out, when I got out of college, I was determined only to do Moliere. I would only do restoration
well,
comedy
yeah.
because for 2 years in my junior and senior year, I had perfected my bow. And then I came to New York, and then I happened to sing a little bit, and I got a job in a musical, and it was my first job. And then suddenly, as Priscilla said, it was like that was my niche. And then what happens is that you just go, you want to work, because it was either that or bartend, and I wanted to go, and it seemed that the musical theater for people like myself, it was like the area of least resistance. You know, I went out to Los Angeles, and it was like nothing was going to happen for me, and I don't think that I was going to get plays right away. So it just ended up being the easiest place to start, and has always been, thank goodness, a place to come back and work.
Yeah. I'm the same. I started out as a no threat. I was a no threat actor. I didn't dance. I didn't really sing in any sort of what I thought was a Broadway style. And, I barely had any, connections in the acting world. So I do, that also happens to a lot of people, myself included, where you come to do theater and it turns out that life leads you to other things, and then you're classified as that. Which at first was strange to be thought of as a musical theater actor, because I would look down on it, definitely. And but now I see that it's like karmically and spiritually, and even as a craftsperson, the best thing you can do. The most purest, most beautiful thing you can send out into the universe, I think, right now, in terms of the mediums that we have available, television, movies, straight plays. There's something about doing a musical that it's not like doing anything else in terms of what you do, how you feel inside, and what you feel you're sending out into the world.
I'm sorry to shout, but here
Also, some of the fun of performing it is that I had a rock band when I was in high school and college, and I don't know if you did, but I know you've sung for live and rock bands.
Yeah.
And there's something about singing with a live orchestra.
Yeah,
that is just it's just great. You sort of forget the most thrilling day of rehearsal when you're putting together a big musical always is, and unanimously I think, is the Sitzprobe. And you sit in the orchestra and you watch them do their thing and you sing along, and suddenly it's the most beautiful form ever.
So you feel like a beast in the cage. Stick with me and you'll be on the stage. Throw your hat in the ring. They might make you a king, and you'll trade that hat for a crown. You're the man. You're the man about town.
The music, I always see it as this cushion that just holds everything up, and just kind of brings the whole production and everyone along with it. And then music, it creates this emotional response in the audience. Forget what you're saying or how you're saying it. Just the music itself. They play those little violins, and so it's another character in the show. It's a very important character in the show. So.
But one I want to punch out every once in a while. Every once in a while. Like, for instance, if a character is just about to have a catharsis and you hear the orchestra about 3 seconds before go, you go, and thank you, violin number 2.
Yeah, see, that's the trick.
It's very tricky to get us all the same thing.
So how much Moliere have you actually done?
I did a little bit. I was paid $35 a week, and I did The Learned Ladies in a pair of what became Uggs.
You started that horrible trend.
It was 1983, and I wore the first pair of Uggs.
I call them Barts, by the way. Now,
Do you all see yourselves as actors who sing, singers who act? How do you classify yourselves?
I would say I'm an actor who sings.
I would say the same thing, if I can say that. I think audiences today are savvy. It's the difference between, I'm probably going to ostracize the whole opera world, but the flap there is that when you go see an opera, it's more about the technique, it's more about the sound, it's more about the song and the voice, as opposed to the character or what it takes to craft a character. And you know, it's all about function too, but I think it's required to act. It's definitely required.
And I was a wild 25, and I loved a wife so alive, but now I believe I would settle for one who can drive.
What about dancing? Priscilla possibly accepted. Are you actors, singers who move well? How comfortable are you all with dancing? How much do you dance?
It depends on what's forced upon one. And I know there are a lot of people that are really fantastic dancers who sing and are actors. It's just not something. Luckily, I have fantastic rhythm, but other than that, it's just you roll with it and you lie. Basically, you lie, do a lot of lying, and you've had a lot of training, and you can do anything they ask, and then you get into the room and hope that you can.
Well, I started as a dancer, and I'm really happy that I did start as a dancer, because as a dancer, there's a discipline that's required. You know, it's like you just do it, and you do it again and again and again, and it kind of set a path for my life. You know, I had that very dancer mentality of you just keep going, you know, and you don't question, which is not always good, but to begin that way, it was fine, and I just found that it created a discipline within my work that helped me, and within my life too, that helped me all along the way. And also because a lot of times I'll go and speak to young kids in schools or whatever, and I always tell them, you know, if you can study dance, because it's very good to be in touch with your body. You know, there's nothing like being able to, especially in a musical, you know, even if you're not a dancer, you're an actor, to be able to have control of your body and fly across the stage and be in control of it and create things that you couldn't possibly, or sometimes just when you see someone walk across a stage, and if they don't have that sense of what their body is, and they're schlubbing along and they're supposed to be this, you know, beauty queen or whatever they're supposed to be, and you go, you know, so it's really important, I think, if you're young, it's something that you should definitely do, because it can only help you in every way, shape, and form, you know.
The dancing that I've been asked to do has been really fantastic, because they're kind of piecemeal in my career. You know, getting lucky to get a job, and then some courageous choreographer saying, "You're going to do this," and just having blind faith that I can, which is tremendous, because usually I can't. But the challenge of it has been really rewarding in a couple of occasions where I've got done with it, and I thought, hey, I did that. Whereas I don't necessarily see myself as being capable to kind of walk into a room and say, yeah, I can do whatever you want me to do. But I do feel fairly confident that, you know, there are definite limits to what I can do as a dancer, but I'm pretty game to try. And the people that have asked me to try, I'm really grateful to, because that doesn't usually happen. So I always find I'm really, really, really thrilled when I get the chance to see that. And I was actually, I don't want to embarrass you, but, you know, just seeing Roger dance in the clips for Putting on the Ritz. I mean, he's a good dancer, and I think, no, he is. You look at him; he's a good dancer. The point I'm making is that not often do you get to ask, are you asked to dance, and it's great when you can show up and say, yeah, I can do that.
But I have to say, acting is the most important element of everything.
Yeah.
Whether you're dancing or singing, you know, to tell the story that's your job. And that's what is so interesting about being an actor, that people think it's about you, and it's so not about you. When you're really doing your work, it's about you telling the story. And whether you're dancing or singing, the acting is the most important thing that you have to concentrate on. It's great to know your body. It's great. You have to do that. You have to be in touch with that. You have to be able to be comfortable singing. But your biggest requirement, you can get through any of that if you can focus on telling the story, I would say. Don't you think?
I agree.
But they're all acting, you know. When
Right.
you're dancing,
Exactly.
you're acting. When you're singing, you're acting.
If you're acting, though,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
all
that's true.
acting. Yeah.
And it's funny because a lot of dancers think they can't act, and they are the most expressive. When you see them dance, they're telling these incredible stories, you know. And and it's just translating that to here, but it's all the same. Or you see these incredible singers, when they sing, they're just, and then they start to speak, and and they have, it's all connected. They just haven't experienced it enough to connect it and make it as one. But it's all the same.
So you don't consider yourself a good dancer?
I'm a wanker actor, singer,
What?
dancer. The first time I was taught I had to dance in something, I left the rehearsal early and quit the job, and then I was called later and said, "No, come back in, I'll help you."
What was it?
It was Tommy, the first national of Tommy, and I was
to dance on
Wayne
that too.
Cilento. I sort of tucked myself in the back, and I was like in a field position within 10 seconds. I was like, and Lisa Mordente, so sweet, kind of took me in another room, and she sort of just broke everything down. And it turns out that I loved it so much because I was sort of always acting through stuff and was a clown, and I knew my body pretty well, and suddenly dance was a great form for me to be able to express through a larger form of expression of emotion. And suddenly I was so, once I understood it and felt so in it, it was a great form of expression for me. It was explosive for me. It felt like I could really use my body, and then, so it was thrilling to build that confidence. And although I still can't believe that I'm like I was in the producers for a while doing what is a Fred Astaire number, but I remember one of my favorite things to do is to choose to believe as a character that I believe that I'm the greatest dancer who ever lived, because that makes for very funny movement, because I'm not. And so, but when I believe that I am, it is hilarious to look at, because then I create a fool, and that's largely the way that this formula of a fool is, is that uber belief and then myself, and then suddenly I'm a joke, but you don't know it. That's my favorite.
That's the best.
Kind of like,
You are joking.
Yeah.
I did a production of Carousel. I was in the ensemble of Carousel 10 years ago. This is a real quick story about dancing. And I was asked to be in this amazing group of dancers, the Kenneth McMillan choreography. It was exquisite choreography, and I was asked to be a part of that. And so I tried so hard to kind of just catch up. And there was one moment where we're asked to do a double tour after a series of hornpipe moves, It was ridiculous.
I'd seen
So
that.
my last day of the show, I was leaving the show, and I'd worked and worked to the point of the fetal position that Roger was talking about, just crying because I couldn't get it. The last day I was leaving, Tay Diggs was in the show, and I said to Tay, we got our big clam buckets going on, we're in the wings, and I said, Tay, you know what, I'm really going to try 2 tonight. It's my last time, I'm going to try nail 2. And he took me by the shoulder and he said, why don't you just try getting one really good one? But what I didn't know is that everyone had planned for a good long time of music to stop dancing, while I was dancing by myself with my back turned to the audience, leading towards the double tour. So for about 45 seconds, I was doing do-do-do, and then getting ready to do a double tour. And of course, everyone's on their haunches like hyenas, laughing at me.
Oh no!
I did one pathetic little spin in the air like a puppet, and landed and poke it away. And anyway, that was kind
Cool.
of awful.
We've done the same thing with people with having terrible singers who would all drop out.
Yeah, that's awful.
Then you just leave them high and dry,
Crash and burn.
Cruel, but
Oh dear!
falling on your face is as thrilling as a big laugh, as far as I'm concerned. We
Theater
love
family.
it. Yeah.
So much love in the
There is.
Broadway
Yes,
community.
it is.
It's just a tough love.
Evil,
It's
evil,
a sibling
tough love.
What kind of training did you all have, as far as, I guess, not much dance training for a few of you, it sounds like, but where did you guys study? College?
I went to college early because they were doing a production of Crimes in the Heart, and I really wanted to get into that. So that was, I knew that I wanted to come to New York and study acting from a very young age, and I looked up where all the people I admired, I researched the people that I admired, and I found out a lot of them had gone to the same school, the Neighborhood Playhouse, studied with Sanford Meisner, and that's where I went for 2 years when I was 19. It saved my life.
I did tons of high school musicals and was really interested in it, and got into Northwestern University and studied theater there, and then got a degree in theater, and then moved to New York shortly after that. So my training was mostly at school, and then the odd acting class here and there over the years, but mainly Bud Byer at Northwestern University was my teacher.
Well, I started dance lessons when I was about 7, and wanted to go to the High School Performing Arts for dance. Then had a little episode that sent me in another direction, so I went for acting. And I graduated from high school. I started auditioning actually for a Broadway ensemble when I was about 13, thinking I was really going to get in. And for about 5 years, I just kept at it, doing it. And by the time I graduated, I didn't want to go to college because I kept looking down the block because school was on 46th Street and just off Broadway. I thought, why am I going to go away to study theater? It's down the block. So all I wanted to do was work. So I just, luckily after all those years of auditioning, by the time I graduated high school, I got my first Broadway show, and I just back then there was like shows after shows after shows. So I did one right after another, and I kind of felt like those 4 years were my college education of just really doing it, as a dancer, and then I kind of worked my way up through the ranks.
And what was that little episode at the high school, just in case people who are watching might not know?
Well, in Chorus Line, there's this song called Nothing, and it was about my experience at the High School Performing Arts in the acting department. But before I ever got there, I wanted to go for dance, and I was told that if I went to this certain school, that the head of the school was an admitter to the school, would help me get into the school. So I went to study dance with her, and it was worse than my acting experience. I mean, it was just so dreadful. I mean, she's saying, you're never going to be anything, and if you don't improve, just don't come back. So I went home crying, and I sort of told my mother, I can't go back there, I just can't go back, I can't go back. But I wanted to go to the school so badly that I prepared these monologues and got in for the acting, which was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it really showed me I want to be an actor. But I was a dancer. And so when I graduated, I didn't feel like an actor, but I knew I was a dancer. So that's the route I took. But I always wanted to talk.
I studied with a Professor Karp, who has since died. Just kidding. Sorry. Theater joke. No, I went to Rutgers University. It was inexpensive.
Oh, cool.
And I studied Meisner technique also, which conversely to her actually almost killed me more than saved my life. But it was interesting, and we were trained very well. It's a little strange for a 17 and 18-year-old. Some of the stuff, it's probably a little bit better for older people, I think. But it was very useful, and I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts from there because I wanted, in case it didn't work out with acting, I could go into politics. So.
Did you really want to go into politics?
No,
maybe?
no.
Okay.
Are you kidding? Can you imagine?
It's kind of the same thing as acting.
And yeah, that's it.
What is it about can you say a little bit about the Meisner technique?
It's about listening and answering. And then they have a lot of, they're very into being specific. They choose activities, meaning you learn how to actually do. Acting is doing is another one of their things. When you're acting, you're not acting, you're doing something.
Right.
And it's a lot of specific techniques like that you have to fall back on when you're about to have a nervous breakdown on
And the other
opening
thing
night.
is that they'll qualify it as acting truthfully under imaginary circumstances, which I think the distinction between where he and Strasberg sort of split was Strasberg was more interested in going out and working up stuff from your own life, and it's maybe some bad experiences, maybe good experiences to bring onto the stage. But I think Meisner felt that maybe that wasn't the most healthy thing to do for stage. You should use your imagination, and they talk a lot about this phrase, the emotional as if. It is as if it was like the day that you something that's very personal for you that you can put into that. Needless to say, though, when I'm out in the hallway and William Esper's in the room and he says, "Go out and don't come in until you get tears," I was punching myself in the face and reminding myself of the time my parents beat me.
I'm punching myself in the face.
So it was desperate. It required desperate stuff. But really, I don't dig up a lot of personal stuff, you know. But I do remember at times not, you know, it's an interesting process, and it's interesting to do work while you're learning Meisner technique, because you can, as you're doing plays, there were different stages. You can always tell an actor sometimes where they're at with Meisner technique, because they kind of only focus on one thing. You know, like we had this movement class for actors, and for some reason everyone's arms became loose that year at college. So whenever you went to this, like we go to a studio production of, you know, Bents, and everybody, whenever they turn, would always go like this, like that. And I always thought, they're in their second year.
Their arm work phase.
They were doing arm work that week. You know? So college was very funny that way, to watch everybody figure it out. You know.
Yeah.
Did you all have professional voice lessons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually, yeah. But just kind of just did it, and then I think you start taking lessons when you start getting in trouble. It's like, well, what am I doing wrong now?
Well, there's a great one in New York who has many proteges, but she's amazing, Joan Lader, who has you know, I mean, everybody has studied with her.
Right?
She's a speech pathologist. She's great. She's helped a lot of people. She taught me how to sustain myself through a long run, through being sort of more technically proficient. She's been great, but there are a lot of wonderful teachers out there, and it is essential, because it's one thing to knock one out one night, but it's 8 times a week, and you got to figure out how to weave your way around fatigue, and isn't that true?
Yeah. So. Or if you're doing something where you know the role demands you to be, you know, just for example, just screaming or something, using your voice in a way that you're going to protect yourself, and you can't scream every night in a way. You want it to be authentic, and you want it to seem true and emotionally true, but you just can't get away with that after a long run. So you have to find ways to know how to do that, and that's when a great teacher helps.
I met Joan Lader when we were 15 years old in summer stock.
Oh, wow.
And then we sort of parted ways. And, you know, she went her way, I went mine, and years later I got into trouble. I went to this doctor and he said, "You need to meet this person who's, you know, top of her field, and her name is Joan Lader." And I thought, no, that can't be Joan. So I leave a message on her machine saying, "Hello, Miss Lader, this is Priscilla Lopez, and Dr. Bubba asked me to call you." And she goes like, "What are you leaving such a message on my machine for?" And I was shocked, because in the time that we had left, she'd gone and studied speech. Well, she kind of came across this in a strange way, so it was really great.
I bet she still charged the same, though, even though they were old friends.
I think I get a break. I think I get a little break. No, she's great. She really is.
The summer stock rate. That's
right. So our goal is to get insurance covering Joan Lader's lessons.
That's miraculous.
So you guys still keep up with voice lessons and all that kind of stuff?
What are you saying? Yeah.
You should, but I just, you know.
I think it also depends on if a different role comes up and your voice has been used to singing a certain. For me, I started taking voice lessons because people said, "You have a nice voice," and it was another kind of money revenue. I should develop it. So it was kind of I had to do it because I didn't know how to sing musical theater and types of songs. But now it's so much more diverse that there are different shows that come up and require different style or different types of muscles. Once you're in a show for, you know, a year, you use the same muscles over and over, and when you want another role, sometimes it takes a while for it to get around that part. And taking voice lessons with someone like Joan, thank you for the discount, is great, is so helpful. So you do have to keep doing it, I think, periodically. I don't know about you.
It'd be interesting to see if like Major League Baseball, if they did a steroid check on all of us.
That's what I say.
Every once in a while, and see how we do. See how many of us are forced out of the theater. I will not see Young Frankenstein.
Right.
Roger Bart is on prednisone.
Look at his arms.
How dare he?
They're huge.
Oh, don't get the government involved.
Can you imagine me, you know, I did not know, I was not aware.
I thought it was vitamin C.
What are your routines like? What do you guys have to do in order to keep yourselves healthy and running at 100% or as close to 100% as
45%.
you can
What if they're running
get.
45%? Yeah.
First thing, when I wake up, the first thing that I do is go, I say, okay, it's okay. I mean, it's like neurotic, but it's the, if I can go, oh, okay, then I can fall back to sleep again. And basically, for me, I don't know, it's always, I see the show at the end of the road for that day. It's kind of geared, and what do I have to do today, and what can I do, and what can I do? I just, I have a certain, I do juices, I do a lot of vegetable juices just for my body and whatever, and I can't eat a lot during the day because I eat early because I don't like to have a full stomach when I eat. So I have my dinner around 4 o'clock. So by the time 8 hits, it's gone and I've gotten the nutrients I need, and then maybe I'll eat after the show again. But I don't drink because it affects me in a way that I know.
Whoa.
I know.
It's a
I'm a
sacrifice.
sissy. I'm a sissy.
My God,
I know
woman.
it's terrible. When I do, that's why I like to do plays because I get to drink. Because it doesn't, vocally, it really like.
It just drives you out.
Yeah, it just does. So.
It's like we're athletes, we sort of approach it like, I don't mean to speak for you guys, but I'm sure you probably do, but it's like athletes, we've got a big race coming around 8 o'clock at night, and we sort of got to get sleep. We have to eat well, and we've got to you got to sleep a certain amount. You can't go out and scream the night before. You really have to sort of take care of yourself. It's not, as you get older too. It's not a terrible sacrifice, but at the same time, it's just taking care of yourself because you're gearing all your energy towards about a 2.5 hour punch.
And you realize it's not worth it. It's just I'd rather have the ability to do what I have to go out there and do than to have stayed out of too late or had that drink or whatever. And usually I find when I work, I'm my healthiest because I take care of myself the best to be able to do it.
Also, I've known so many people along the way that suffer through a show because they must live like monks, and you just go, why?
No.
Why do you do that? I mean, I had an ex-girlfriend of mine. We would have conversations, and she'd have a pencil, and I'd say, "How are you tonight?" Good.
Oh,
and
no.
Did you eat? Oh, well, maybe you should get something. I mean, it was really. And then I just thought,
Don't
this
act
is
like you didn't like that though.
It sort of turned me on.
Conversation.
Oh my God. How was I last night? Really? Now we get the multi-tap. It's just nutty. I won't mention
Tapping.
names. You know who you are.
Oh my gosh.
No.
Maybe at this table. What about Brian? But we have kids. I mean, you have a kid too.
Yeah, two.
Young. What?
I had two.
You have two.
Yeah,
All
one
right.
your age and one small. Yeah.
It changes. You think it's hard to do 8 shows a week. It used to be hard to do 8 shows a week when you didn't have really a life, like that was your life. And then when you have kids, it's you can't believe you're doing it. At the same time, in a way, it puts a better perspective on everything. Makes you realize, like, now am I really that fragile? Really, can't I go to the playground and run around today and, and then just go to work? And sometimes it's better to look, I'd be dead probably. If I was in any other art form that didn't require so much discipline, it's helpful to stay healthy, but it's also good to live life and that brings stuff to your work too. So it's a balance of trying to be a normal human being. And what do you think?
Well, it's a great. This is going to sound pejorative, but it's a great distraction, in the best sense of the word, in that you have requirements and responsibilities that are other than your job that are going to make you more of a full person and allow you to live your life. And sometimes, taking care of a child can be task oriented, but it's also the opposite of that is just the beauty of having a child around and raising a child and all that. So that it gets back to perspective, I guess, and allowing yourself to be distracted by something more important than what it is you have to do at 8 o'clock. And then that becomes the most important thing while you're there.
And then when the show is your whole life, you don't bring as much humanity into the show. You can feel it too, as you don't have a life for 2 weeks or something, and you're just doing the show. And by the end of that 2-week stretch, you lost a little joy, and you lost a little of yourself. And it's when you go away and you have a nice full day, and the show happens to you in a very organic way. You experience the show. And you're taken by surprise that you end up kind of bringing the most of your person to it, and that really ultimately is kind of when it's really satisfying.
But you know, I think what happens is that you reach, you do what you need to do. You know, like if you need to take, because my kids are grown now, so they're off at school, and so I'm into a whole other thing. But when they were little, and I was doing that whole thing, and you get the energy you need to take care of the kids and do the shopping and take care of your house and go do the show, but you know, it's all part of it, and all of what you've said is so true.
What do you think of the new crop of young composers out there?
They're necessary, and I love them, and they're bringing, you know, a new sensibility, their sensibility, and using everything that they've studied and poured over their whole lives in terms of, you know, the masters that have preceded them. So all of the theater that they have listened to and respected is there, and yet they have their own sensibility and their own way of communicating through music. So what I like about that is that I don't feel like the young composers are necessarily feeling as if they need to stay on that path, and are for your show In the Heights. I mean, my God, you couldn't have a better example of someone saying, "This is what I want to do, and this is how I want to say it," and using the you know, the idiom of the time, you know, the particular music that is in the Heights. So it's courageous, and it's necessary. So thank God, as you say.
I hear a lot of young composers through the record label that I co-founded with my husband, Shika Boom, and Ghostlight Records, and we do Broadway cast recordings, and have a lot of cast recordings of those composers you mentioned, and a lot of new ones that haven't had shows break through yet. And I think what's great is that a lot of them don't respect any old musical theater. They, you know, they're kind of drawn to musicals by what they've seen and what their experience is, but they don't necessarily know, you know, Oklahoma or any of those old shows. So they're not, you know, it's like an independent filmmaker that's not trying to make Citizen Kane over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I think in our community, we can be a little discriminatory. Certain people can be discriminatory against, everything, the standard is always held the same, as opposed to, like in film, where there is a great movie like Citizen Kane, but there's also an amazing, you know, independent film that,
Pulp Fiction.
like Pulp
there,
Fiction,
yeah.
something that, there's so many different genres within that medium.
Yeah.
And I think the new crop of composers understand that they believe that that's how it should be. I can't wait for the first action adventure musical to like happen.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or maybe that story we were talking about the kid living in the Port Authority locker,
yeah.
who's Gary Coleman. There are all sorts of types of musicals that, you know, don't need to be held to one type of standard of what it was. And this new crop of composers understand that they take in information from television, popular culture, and without disrespecting the past. I think that they're able to, hopefully, pray to God, bring us. We're not even into this century, I don't believe yet, in terms of musical theater, in terms of our relevance, you know, in modern day society. And certainly In the Heights, Passing Strange, things like that are beginning to bring us in there. But then there's room for all sorts of shows, like Next to Normal and Young Frankenstein, Little Mermaid, you know, without, you know, degrading anything. Everything, you know, it's, you know, should all be lifted up, you know, so.
And you kind of hope too, in some ways, that you wish that there were more than the theaters we had here on Broadway, because there is only so much room that the market can kind of hold. But what she's saying is so thrilling, because if you've been around for 20 years or so, and you know, you watch the Paul Simons, I did a piece of Todd Rundgren's, these incredible musicians that are used to working in front of huge groups of audience, having total control. And then they work on a piece, and no offense against critics, but they get sort of run out of town. And they feel like, well, why bother? I can send my message out in a concert, and I don't have to deal with all this criticism. This doesn't make sense to me. And I don't get paid. So, you know, it's like for a while there that we had this kind of crazy in the 80s, the Brits were writing that opera stuff, and there was certainly no place for me in that, the Les Mises and the Miss Saigons. It was like for voice majors who, they didn't let act too much. They just, you know, and then and then suddenly the rock and rollers have been sort of chased out. Thank God for like people like Duncan Sheik who managed to sort of sneak in, and there was, you know, some people occasionally say that, you know, there was a sort of a Students of Sondheim influx that was kind of over the heads of a lot of sort of normal sort of theater goers. You know, that it came this crop of really hyper-educated, incredible musicians, but it was almost like, wow, they're like art pieces, you know, they're beautiful. But you just want, you know, one cool thing about this season, you know, for all the stuff, you know, people saying it maybe it isn't the greatest season ever for musicals, or it is, or whatever, but for new musicals. But look at the diversity. I mean, it's just, that's what's thrilling, is you've got, you know, I got Mel Brooks churning out some wonderful homages to old music, and Menken doing his stuff, which is always brilliant. And then we've got this influx of other people who want to express themselves differently. Musical theater desperately needs to rid itself of the kind of corny factor and move into hip. And unfortunately, it's hard to, because we can only get so many bodies in the theater to pay for the stuff that so many people are really used to being so cool in a concert and a movie setting, you know? So it's tough to kind of keep that coolness, and it's tough to convince young, great musician artists that they can be cool in this 800-seat house for this audience, and not just say, oh, you know, screw it, I'm just going to go out and do my concerts and rock the world and do it themselves, you know. So it's exciting that it's happening a little bit, and you're right, I don't think we're even close to what it's going to be in 10 years.
But it's also bringing, like Lin-Manuel in this piece that I'm doing in the Heights, our audiences are audiences that I've never experienced in the theater. First of all, there's so many kids that come, you know, and inner city kids, and people who, this is the first time coming to the theater. We need new audiences in the theater too, and they can feel that there's a place for them to come and see themselves up on stage and relate to that. At the same time, he satisfies the older audience, because he was raised on musical theater, and he was one of these theater kids who, you know, when you go by his dressing room, you know, depending on what day it is, something else is blaring from his, you know, his iPod there, you know. So, and it's wonderful, because sometimes it's stuff I'm going, oh my God, what is that? And sometimes, you know, it's an old song from some old musical. So he's very into many things, and then incorporating the Latin.
Like my man Cole Porter said, people come through for a few cold waters, and a lottery ticket just a part of the routine. Everybody's got a job, everybody's got a dream. They gossip as I sip my coffee, you smirk. The first stop is people hop to work. Bust it, I'm like $1, $2, $1.50, $1.69. I got it. You want a box of condoms? What kind? That's 2 quarters, 2-quarter waters. The New York Times, you need a bag for that. The taxes had it. Once you get some practice at it, you do.
The thing that drew me to this piece was the music. I heard, you know, a sample CD way back, and I went, wow. It just drew me in, and it's important to have those different types of musical settings to attract different people, because the theater needs new audiences, you know. Otherwise, you know, we just need to get them into the theater, you know, little, you know, at a young age, and then get them hooked and let them be the next generation to write and create and keep going, you know.
One thing I imagine that's rewarding for you guys as actors too is having them there throughout the creative process.
There's nothing more rewarding when everybody is collaborating. There's nothing more rewarding, because it's the communal push to get something done. And when it happens, and you know that, you know, your ideas to communicate and to explore are safe with him, her, and her, and all these people that are trying to make the same thing, that's the ideal. And you know, it happens.
That's the most fun, because that's the creative process. Then when we get to do the show, that's the, you know, recreating that and exploring it in different ways. But the actual putting it together, that's the nitty-gritty to create, you know. And you'd say something at rehearsal, and they go, oh yeah, leave that in, you know. So you are a part of the process. That's real important. It's very hard to replace in a show, because you have to fit, you know, something that's been set down, and to try and bring your own stamp to it, and it just gets a little difficult. So I love to do new things, you know, and be part of that process.
That's what Sherry said too. It really is. You know, the perception so much is that is that we're just out there as big giant egos on stage, and really where we really get off is when it's not, when everybody in the room, as Brian said, is everyone in the room is concentrating on one thing, telling the story, and we all actually become sort of selfless, when it's not every man for himself in a process, but that's when it's the most beautiful, and it even gets more beautiful when you layer in the crew, because the crew is in it, they're into it, man. I mean, and the bigger it gets behind stage with the orchestra and everybody involved and the dressers, the more it feels like it's a beautiful thing, right?
It really is. It's the most collaborative experience. I mean, I think artistically you could possibly have. Anyone going into it should know that. It's not like any other medium. It's time consuming. You end up really, knowing a lot of aspects of the work that you wouldn't know. Different than doing movies, let's say, or everyone here has done all of those, and the difference is like the process of theater is the experience. Whatever your process has been, you carry that in. That becomes the experience. The process of that night's show is the experience that everyone has. And like when you're doing films, your process doesn't matter at all. You can have the worst time you've ever had in your life, and all that matters is the result. And in theater, the experience is the result. So it's so fantastic that way, that every night is a different experience, and every night is this slightly different result. But everyone's a part of that. The audience, the people backstage, everyone, and that's just much more fulfilling. That being said, what you put into it is much more. What you give time-wise, what you give of your life, years of your life sometimes to shows, you give more.
Pathetic or unfortunate souls in pain, in need. This one longing to be thinner, that one wants to get the girl, and do I help them? Yes, indeed. Those poor unfortunate souls, so sad, so true. They come flocking to my cauldron, crying spells, Ursula, please, and I help them. Yes, I do.
Have you guys done something and then found maybe it hasn't worked, and the director said, no, let's change this, or the writers adjusted it kind of for you, like they've written it and now that you're doing it?
Of course. I mean, I think it's standard.
The process.
Sometimes they will cater to your the parameters of your skills, and sometimes they will take advantage of something that you do that's special, and I'm sure everybody here, the infusion of new ideas and new twists on things can be fantastic, but it's also great sometimes when we try something for a week in rehearsal and we say, let's go back and we'll go in another direction. It's really where it's thrilling,
You can always go back to what it was. It doesn't hurt to change and try. That's what you go out of town for. And any new people starting, any new composers, it's good to know that's you need to experiment and play, play, and be safe and feel safe, and going out of town or being off Broadway is really imperative.
The toughest thing to hear too when you're working with people, other actors, is when you hear them say, I can't believe, how am I going to deal with these changes every night? And I just think, you give them a whirl, and tomorrow they'll be better. And there's something, when you get precious about it, it becomes dangerous. It's like you just have to really be open, and it is your job, and it's thrilling to try new stuff and be out on a limb. That's when it's really exciting.
On the other side of that coin, though, there are moments when, say, you have been working on something that is dear to you, or you feel is important to you, or that is just completely instrumental to your character, that you see, and then it's been cut for whatever reason. It's hard. That's really, really hard. So it's not like it's a walk in the park sometimes, but going back to the kind of it takes a village mentality, if you can see the greater good and you're willing to trust that those that are in charge or those who are making those kinds of decisions, you got to let that happen as well. So just to give it a little different color in terms of the personal side of it, it's not always sunshine and roses. It can be tough to kind of swallow those bitter pills.
That's why
because as actors, we just see it from our point of view, and it's about the whole picture, but we get so caught up in what we do, and then we take it so personally. Oh, I didn't do this, I should have done that, you know. And it starts getting, and if you can just let go of that and say, let's go for the ride, let's just have the thing, and in the end, you know, it's a show, it's make-believe.
Yeah.
That's what I love about the theater, is that all the things that you were talking about, all these elements that take to do this, every day we come in, you know, whenever we get in, 7:30, from the stagehands, we've all agreed to make believe, and we're going to play, you know. And in the end, for me, it's got to be fun, because this business is so hard, you know, to get a job, to succeed, all those things that when you're actually doing it, you're going to be miserable. You know, to me, the most important thing is to enjoy what I'm doing when I'm doing it, and just go with the flow. And a lot of those things, you know, when I see them, I say, fine. You want? Fine. It's fine. You know, it's like, it's not, you know, brain
I said she was a
surgery.
little passive aggressive in that personally, but
But no, it's
fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
I'll deal with it.
But-
But and let's say it's true or whatever. In the end, I go, yeah, it really is fine, because it's like, what do you know? You just do it.
It's also our gig too.
Yeah,
The audience wants to come, and no matter how we're feeling, I mean, it is great to be there, but I can't be in a good mood every day, you know, certainly coming to the theater, but I know. That's why I take.
Don't get started on that again.
But it is really important that the audience, that our job is to make sure that the audience, that we are having fun, because they really,
They've
they're
paid a
there.
lot of money.
They've spent a lot of money. They're there to have fun tonight. You know, they're not going to sit there and watch me whine because of something going on.
And when people say, well, how do you do that every night? It's, hello, it's my job.
It's your job.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm a professional, they pay me, and I do it. It's like, you know, you expect that of any professional. A surgeon, oh, gee, I just don't really feel like cutting you open today. I mean, it's like, it's your job, you know, so it's pretty basic, and hopefully you love your job and you want to do it, and, you know, and it equals good, you know, it all equals good.
Are there any roles that you're dying to play that maybe producers might not immediately see you in, but that you're dying to play and deep down you know you're right for?
I mean, honestly, there are no. I like the idea of new roles. There's no roles. There's no revival that I'd be interested in doing. I think that that's, a lot of people feel that way. I think that we're ready for the new stuff. We're ready for the new shows. I mean, I'm not saying, if you guys have these secret things that you want to play.
Music Man. Sorry, go ahead.
But see, and we'll go around, and there are people listening that will hear that. But I'm appealing to the new people, the new composers, you know, that
She'll be available.
And I think that's hopefully we'll start along that. I think we always need to do revivals and reinvent, you know, old shows. It's fantastic, but I hope we can also, you know, keep moving forward with new stuff. Would be great.
Yeah, I feel that way. That's always a question I go, because you have a chance to really create something new, you know, and the excitement that comes with a new thing that's never been seen before, and it has an energy about it, you know. It's important to do the old shows because it's part of our theater history, and, you know, different takes on it is wonderful, and, you know, it's like operas. They do operas over and over. When someone finally said that to me, because when I was younger, I thought, why do they keep doing these revivals? You know, why don't they do new things? And then, you know, they pointed out, well, like in opera, they do them over and over, and I'm, all right, okay, it's part of history, okay. So I kind of accepted it, but I've never had a thing of, oh, I have to play you know. I like the new too. I like the idea of new.
That being said, I would love to do, you know, and plays. I think every musical theater person is always dreaming about doing, you know, straight plays. Your commitment to musical theater is a long time. And, you know, everybody wants to do some Tennessee Williams or some Chekhov or some Shakespeare, you know, and it's just finding you know.
But you know,
Don't you think?
haven't you
absolutely.
noticed that whenever you do a play and you're in the middle of something, you think, this would be a great spot for a song.
Exactly. Right.
This would be a great moment for a song.
Doll's House the musical. Right. Right.
Things I'd love to do. I'd like to do a show where there's 6 characters, men and women, that all change parts all the time. Men and women playing both. That would be very cool. And the other thing that I'd love to do is not necessarily a role, but I started off singing as a pop rock, like a folky singer, and I've always been in these shows where I don't sing like me. I'm always singing, keep it gay, and so it's just I don't really sing like me, and I would love to just have an original show where I get to sing from where I'm connected to my core and not making a voice that just wouldn't, that suits the way this is written as opposed to what's the way I feel like I express myself,
Sherry and I are shopping a new musical based on the after-school special where Gary Coleman gets locked in a locker in Union Station in Chicago. That sounds like it
You
might
want to
be.
play the locker.
No, no.
Right?
So you would be playing Gary Coleman?
I don't know yet. I don't know, but from what Roger just said, I think that he might have the right kind of vibe
riff
for
at
it.
Equity.
Or
They will see you.
Sherry could play Gary
We have
Coleman.
the same birthday. Yeah.
You watch 5 years from now, there will be, trapped in a locker.
But I think that is a challenge.
Like the new Floyd Collins, right?
Modern day Floyd Collins.
Gary!
Get out of that locker.
Okay, you know what? Don't give it away. I think we should save it
don't
for
have the rights.
save it for the
We
cast.
don't have the rights.
Don't give
We've
away all
blown
your
it.
secrets.
We've blown it.
I think that's a very good place to end it.
Maybe.
You want to copyright it first. Okay. On that note, thank you all. Thank you for joining us. These programs are brought to you from the Graduate Center of the City University of New York in partnership with our friends at CUNY TV. On behalf of the American Theater Wing, I'm Melissa Rose Bernardo, and thanks for joining us for another edition of Working in Theater.
The American Theater Wing has played a vital role in New York's theatrical life for more than 60 years. We stand for excellence, and we support education in the theater.
Best known for creating the Tony Award, our work reaches beyond Broadway and New York.
These seminar programs, which are supported by the Annenberg Foundation and the Dorothy Strelson Foundation, are an unequal forum for discussions with today's most creative artists.
Downstage Center's in-depth interviews are heard on XM Satellite Radio. Our grant and scholarship programs support New York theater companies and theater students. And since we began, we have given away more than $2.5 million.
Our theater intern group helps young people who are just starting in their careers build a professional network.
And Springboard NYC is a 2-week boot camp for aspiring actors from colleges across the country.
All of the American Theater Wing's educational and media programs are available for free, on demand, from our website, americantheaterwing.org.